Welcome to another episode in our series exploring the intricate legacies of Africa's most influential dictators. Today, we look into the life and rule of one of Africa's longest-serving leaders, Muammar Gaddafi. From the deserts of Libya to the corridors of international diplomacy, Gaddafi was a figure who left no one indifferent. But beneath the surface, what truly motivated this enigmatic leader? Was Muammar Gaddafi a revolutionary in Africa, advocating for the continent's unity and empowerment? Or was he merely a self-serving leader who exploited his power for personal glory? Raised in a poor, illiterate family from the Gadaffi tribe, they earned a meager living by herding goats and camels. As a child, Gaddafi lived in a mosque in Sirte to attend a religious school. Later, he moved with his family to Sabah, where he went to secondary school and was first introduced to the Pan-Arab movement. As a young man, Gaddafi was deeply influenced by the Arab nationalist movement and admired Egyptian leader Gamal Abdel Nasser. In 1961, he enrolled at the University of Libya in Benghazi to study history. However, 2 years later, his restless spirit led him to join the Libyan military academy. He graduated in 1965 as a second lieutenant in the Signal Corps. He wasted no time in putting his military status to use, forming the Free Officers Movement, which was a revolutionary group inspired by Nasser's organization in Egypt. His skills didn't go unnoticed, and in 1966, he was sent to England for a training course to enhance his signaling expertise and learn the English language. Gaddafi was a man on the move, steadily climbing the ranks of the military and plotting his next big move. Recognizing that King Idris was out of touch with the growing desire for political unity among Arab countries, he saw an opportunity for change. With a handful of fellow army officers, Gaddafi began planning to overthrow the monarchy. By 1969, Gaddafi had earned the rank of captain, and the time for action had arrived. On September 1st of that year, about 70 young, ambitious army officers, led by the Free Officers Movement and Gaddafi himself, seized control. They struck while the iron was hot, taking advantage of King Idris's absence from the country, receiving treatment for an ailing leg. It was a bloodless coup, a smooth operation that toppled the monarchy without a single drop of blood spilled. With the king dethroned, Gaddafi stepped up to the plate. At just 27 years of age, he became the commander-in-chief of Libya's armed forces and chairman of the country's new ruling body, the Revolutionary Command Council. As the new ruler of Libya, Gaddafi wasted no time asserting his authority. His first move in 1970 was to expel the US and British military bases. He also expelled most Italians and Jews from Libya, and in 1973 nationalized the oil industry by taking control of all foreign-owned oil assets. Gaddafi cleaned house, outlawing alcohol and gambling, and replacing the Gregorian calendar with the Islamic one to align with his strict Islamic principles. Gaddafi played his cards close to his chest, keeping power within a tight-knit circle of family and friends, appointing them to all the top positions. Unfortunately, their corruption and crackdown on the activities of civil society organizations or any form of organized dissent among the populace left many Libyans struggling in poverty. Meanwhile, Gaddafi and his inner circle amassed wealth from oil revenues, silencing any dissent. Ambitious as ever, Gaddafi repeatedly attempted to unite Libya with other Arab countries, but his efforts fell flat. He was a staunch opponent of Israel, rejecting any negotiations and playing a key role in the Arab world's opposition to the Egyptian-Israeli peace process. Gaddafi also earned a reputation for meddling in neighboring countries' affairs, with his government's fingerprints found on coup attempts in Egypt and Sudan, and their persistent involvement in Chad's civil war between 1965 to 1979. In the 70s, Gaddafi introduced a unique brand of governance called the Third International Theory, which he later evolved into Islamic socialism in 1974, detailed in his famous Green Book. This led to the nationalizing of economic sectors and the creation of a decentralized confederation called the Jamahira in 1977. But despite stepping down from his formal leadership role in 1979, Gaddafi still pulled the strings behind the scenes, ensuring the power stayed firmly in his hands. Gaddafi's ruling style was not just oppressive, but downright eccentric. He surrounded himself with a squad of female bodyguards in heels and fancied himself as the King of Africa, often traveling abroad with a tent and a wardrobe full of costume-like outfits. Yet, it wasn't just his quirky taste in fashion that raised eyebrows. Gaddafi was despised by much of the international community due to his government's shady dealings. Libya was caught financing anti-Western groups such as the Black Panthers, the Nation of Islam, and even the Irish Republican Army, leading to a diplomatic freeze with the UK for over a decade. Things escalated in 1986 when Libyan terrorists were suspected of bombing a West Berlin dance club, killing 3 and injuring many. In response, US warplanes based in Britain bombed several sites in Libya, including Gaddafi's residence in Tripoli. Gaddafi narrowly escaped, but several of his children were wounded. But the most infamous incident involving Libya and terrorism was the 1988 Lockerbie bombing. A plane carrying 259 civilians blew up near Lockerbie, Scotland, killing everyone on board and 11 more on the ground due to falling debris. Libyan terrorists, including one of Gaddafi's in-laws, were believed to be behind this attack and the destruction of a French passenger jet in 1989, killing all 170 on board. This landed Libya with UN and US sanctions, further isolating Gaddafi on the world stage. However, in the 90s, facing growing Islamist threats, Gaddafi began cooperating with British and American intelligence agencies. Nelson Mandela facilitated the extradition of Lockerbie bombing suspects in 1994, which helped improve Gaddafi's relations with Western capitals. Gaddafi also cultivated relationships with figures like Italian Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi and sent his son, Saif al-Islam Gaddafi, into London's elite circles. Critics, however, believed this newfound friendship was simply a business arrangement for access to Libya's oil. In 2001, UN sanctions were eased and foreign oil companies rushed in, signing lucrative deals. Gaddafi and his inner circle grew even richer, exacerbating the wealth disparity between the ruling family and the general population. Gaddafi added another title to his name, becoming the chairman of the African Union, or AU. But his attempt to extend his chairmanship beyond the usual one-year term in 2010 was met with resistance from other African countries, who ultimately denied his request. While Gaddafi often took his eccentric ideologies to extremes, he did harbor a certain revolutionary vision for Africa. He was an ardent proponent of a United States of Africa. This was an ambitious concept, envisioning a federation of all 54 sovereign states and 2 disputed territories on the African continent. Gaddafi's dream was for Africa to mirror entities like the US and European Union, and to that end, he championed ideas such as a unified African military, a single currency, and even a single passport to facilitate free movement across the continent. In his view, this united front was the only way for Africa to truly flourish and develop, free from the interference of Western powers. While his desire to challenge the status quo and push boundaries often overshadowed his vision, his passion for a transformed Africa was undeniable. His ambitious ideas, though controversial to many, left a divisive legacy. However, after 4 decades of iron-fisted rule, Gaddafi's downfall came rather swiftly. It all began in January 2011 with the Tunisian Revolution, which brought down the longtime dictator Zine al-Abidine Ben Ali. This event marked the beginning of the Arab Spring, a series of anti-government protests, uprisings, and armed rebellions that swept across much of the Arab world. The momentum built, and the following month, Egyptian ruler Hosni Mubarak was forced out, inspiring protesters across the Arab world. Despite the oppressive atmosphere in Libya, demonstrations erupted in Benghazi and spread like wildfire. Gaddafi responded with brute force, bringing in police and foreign mercenaries to shoot at protesters, and even bombarding them from the air with helicopters. The regime's violent crackdown drew condemnation from foreign governments and international human rights groups. However, Gaddafi's repression only fueled greater determination among Libyans to remove him. By the end of February 2011, the opposition had gained control of most of the country, and the rebels formed the National Transitional Council, NTC, to govern. They surrounded Tripoli, where Gaddafi still wielded influence. The international community largely backed the NTC, calling for Gaddafi's removal. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, stepped in at the end of March, providing air support and enforcing a no-fly zone. Their intervention over the next 6 months proved decisive. In April, a NATO attack took out one of Gaddafi's sons, and in late August, Tripoli fell to rebel forces, marking a symbolic end to Gaddafi's rule and forcing Gaddafi into hiding. In June 2011, the International Criminal Court issued arrest warrants for Gaddafi. his son Saif al-Islam and his brother-in-law, charging them with crimes against humanity. The following month, over 30 countries recognized the NTC as Libya's legitimate government. Then, on October 20th, 2011, the news broke: Gaddafi was dead. Killed near his hometown of Sirte, Libyans celebrated in the streets, hailing the event as the culmination of their revolution. However, the post-Gaddafi era in Libya has been far from peaceful. The country has been mired in violence, with various militia groups vying for power and state authority, ultimately falling to the General National Congress. Dozens of political figures and activists in Benghazi have been killed or forced to flee, and the country has seen a string of interim prime ministers come and go. Libya's journey towards stability and democracy remains a work in progress. Explore Africa's hidden narratives and untold stories by subscribing to our channel. Join a community passionate about understanding, engaging with, and appreciating Africa. Hit subscribe, embrace the unknown, and join us in reshaping perspectives.